Welcome to I Said What I Said. I'm Brad Wakai. That's Tyson Gentri. So we don't do a ton of MMA. We don't do a ton of UFC on here, but when we do, we dive into the big stories. And perhaps there isn't a bigger one that we've seen come across the wire than Jon Jones, who many people consider the greatest fighter of all time, the greatest UFC fighter of all time. He has retired from the UFC. His belt was going to go to Tom Aspinall. Dana White said that in a press conference. Jon Jones confirmed it by announcing his retirement on his social media pages. And this sent everybody into a frenzy because Jon Jones is not one of those guys like, some of the past greats, GSP or, Anderson Silva, where it's like, well, man, what a stand-up career. Like there is some serious baggage that came with Jon Jones, which I think is the reason why he's so interesting and such a hot topic that we're discussing today, Tyson. So you're the MMA guy primarily. I follow along. So I'm trying to get your thoughts here as we talk about a guy who has such a storied past and is such a major part of UFC.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the record. I think it's 28-1. The one is an L from 12 to 6 elbows when he was kicking the shit out of Matt Hamill. This is an undefeated fighter for all intents and purposes. And you said the greatest at the top, but no, he's the best. He's not the greatest, and I think those are two different things, and those are things we make distinctions for in other sports, or at least you and I tend to. And there is no question that if I had to go back to a Roman Coliseum and drop one guy off in there from modern times and say, hey, I need you to outlast 50 of these guys, it's going to be Jon Jones. If the aliens come down and they want to fight one guy, it's going to be Jon Jones. But he didn't end his career as the greatest, and that was what he was supposed to do. He's the youngest UFC champion in the history of the sport. This is a guy who came in and he's a legend after legend by the time he got to the UFC. I mean, his second fight ever, UFC 94, was Stephan Bonnar. And that's a guy who obviously had a great career. He beat up Brandon Vera when Brandon Vera was the man. He beat Ryan Bader, Shogun, Rampage Jackson, Lyoto Machida, Rashad Evans. The list goes on and on and on. But Brady never gave those same chances to the other guys coming up. And that's what this whole Tom Aspinall thing is. Jon's end of his career in the UFC, post the no contest with Daniel Cormier when he popped for steroids. That was the head kick knockout. You might remember DC crying because that was when they decided they weren't going to interview guys who had concussions anymore. And then from there, he fought Alexander Gustafsson again. It was like, really? This is like, we're going to do this. Fine, we'll do it. And then he fights Anthony Smith and could have gotten disqualified from that fight for a illegal knee when Smith was on the ground. And then he goes, I think the next one was Thiago Santos, which was a split decision. Santos tears both his ACLs. And then it's Dominic Reyes, a fight that a lot of people think Jon lost. And then we get into the nitty gritty of why people are so upset with him right now. Francis Ngannou is sitting as the king, the baddest man on the planet. I am the heavyweight champion. I'm the hardest hitter in the history of the sport. I learned how to wrestle. I'm the man. Jon says, I need 3 years to be able to bulk up to heavyweight. By that point, Francis Ngannou is now out of the UFC, and Francis is with PFL. He's boxing Tyson Fury. He didn't want to wait around for Jon, and Jon finally shows up. He needed 3 years, and he didn't look necessarily the way we were hoping, but he gets to fight 𝐟𝐨𝐫𝐿, a guy with the grappling ability, at the bottom of the barrel in the heavyweight division. Jon slips one jab, takes him down, chokes him. Jon Jones is back. The king is back. Baby, let's go. What are we going to get? He's got to fight Tom Aspinall. Aspinall just knocked out 𝐿 Pavlovich. This is crazy. The timing is divine. And then he fights a 46-year-old retired firefighter, Stipe Miocic, and beats him up. And it's like, okay, that's fine. He's going to finally have to fight Tom. At this point, Tom is not only the interim champion, Tom's trying to defend the interim belt. He wants to unify the belts, but Jon won't fight him. Jon honeydicks us, Dana White, and the rest of the UFC for 8 months, talking about, I need $30 million. The UFC says, okay, we'll give you $30 million. Jon says, yes. A couple days later, Jon says, no, actually, I don't want to fight Tom Aspinall. This thing lasted so long. He's leaving interviews when guys are talking to him about Tom. I can't sit here and say that Tom Aspinall is going to beat Jon Jones because, again, Jon Jones is the best fighter in the history of the world. But the fact that he didn't want to fight Francis Ngannou and he didn't want to fight Tom Aspinall and he didn't want to go up to heavyweight and fight Daniel Cormier after the steroid no contest all those years ago, those are the things that are at the front of my mind when I think about Jon Jones. I'm not talking about the hit and run on a pregnant woman. I'm not talking about hiding under the octagon so you don't get drug tested by USADA. I'm not talking about the other crimes or beating your wife in front of your children. Like, that's not the guy I'm remembering right now. I'm remembering the guy that ducked his way out of the UFC when he's supposed to be the greatest of all time. And it's why, to me, Jon Jones is the best, but he's not the greatest.
Well, I think that's interesting. And so if you're tuning in and you watch our channel and you listen to our other stuff, Tyson's a huge UFC guy. So laying that out for a layman like me, you kind of forgot all that. You kind of see the timeline and you see the points that people have been making online are the same ones that you're saying when they're detracting from Jon Jones. You talk about the steroids. That was a huge thing. It's one of the reasons I was like, kind of F this guy, like anytime you get popped for that, especially in a fighting thing, where you got to be clean. That was like, that's kind of slimy. The ducking thing happens all the time in boxing, right? It doesn't really happen a lot in UFC, which I think a lot of people have the problems with, because you're supposed to fight the best. That's what having a commissioner, that's what having the president like Dana White, that's what having the #1 challenger and everything set up like this is supposed to do, because you're supposed to see the best all the time. He's not supposed to have 7 belts and, well, I only fight these guys on this promotion because I am promoted by this top rank or whatever, and no, Showtime wants this guy over here, so you never get those fights. UFC is supposed to be for the fans, so you see those best ones. So I think it's interesting that you point that out, and for people who may have forgotten on this long journey of Jon Jones, because the accolades are insane. 23 years old, he's the UFC champion by beating Mauricio Hua, like you said, which is insane to think about. 23.
In that night, Jon Jones stopped somebody who stole a purse from a woman on his way into the arena. This is real. And he holds him down until the cops come. Jon is telling us about believing in God, and he's preaching the Bible. And then this 23-year-old superhuman walks in and beats up Shogun Hua, and everyone is like, yo, I think like this is the second coming. And then every day since then, he became a worse person.
Which is crazy to think about. 16 title fight wins, most title defenses, 11 in UFC history
too.
And it's just insane when you watch this guy fight. It's like he can do everything. He can elbow you, he can knock you out with the elbows, with the feet, he can wrestle you. Like, it didn't feel like there was a single weakness in his game, which is why I think we talk about, people say the greatest, you say the best, because the greatest thing maybe missed the mark on that by not fighting Ngannou, by not fighting Tom Aspinall. We talk about what that fight was going to look like. Is Jon Jones finally going to get knocked out because he's never been knocked out? Is Aspinall going to knock him out? My brother likes UFC. He's like, Aspinall knocks him out. I'm like, probably not. And Jon Jones probably wins, because that's all he does is freaking win UFC fights. And maybe he loses. It's a young man's game. It's a young man's sport. Maybe Jon knew that. That's why he stepped away. But what I've seen with my own eyes is this guy doesn't lose in the octagon. And I have a hard time thinking that some guy named Tom Aspinall, maybe he's great, and when we look at it back at his career, that he's going to be the one that defeats Jon Jones, for God's sake. So that was interesting.
You sound like Jon Jones. You sound like Jon Jones. That was the other part about this whole last 8 months, is Jon keeps telling everyone, including Aspinall, I can't fight you. There's nobody on your resume. Go build your resume. And Tom Aspinall is looking around going, I beat everybody else in the division. You're the champ. I'm the interim champ. It's your contractual obligation now to fight me. Tom said, I'm going to retire him without ever having to fight him. And he did. And I think the hypocrisy there is what gets people so upset, because the names I just read through on that list, like Shogun Hua didn't have to give a title shot to Jon Jones. He did. And that'll open the door for Jon to beat all the other legends. But there's a real world where Jon has to grind 1 or 2 more fights before that. And then we're looking back and it's like, yeah, but his resume is not quite as insane. If you were around, Jon Jones beat the best of the best when they were the best. And that's the thing of it, is like, I think Shogun was 29 the night that they fought when Jon was 23. Lyoto Machida had come over from Pride, and he became like the 185 guy. And he was just beating these guys, and he was beating them easy. If you remember, he broke his toe in the Machida fight, and he's got him up against the cage in a guillotine. He just drops him dead. He just walks away. I'm the baddest man on the planet. And the thing Jon doesn't get enough credit for, if we are like, it is a retirement, I don't want to make it seem like I absolutely despise the guy, but his chin never got enough credit either. And that's the best, the most underrated aspect. Reyes cracked him once and knocked him down in their fight, and that's part of the reason I think that everyone's like Dominic Reyes got robbed. Jon Jones cheated him out of a win there because it was like Jon Jones got knocked out. Like it was the world is falling. What is going on? And we'll find out how great Aspinall can be, but Cain Velasquez got to fight the guys. He fought Junior Dos Santos 94 times. He fought some of the other top guys at that point. Stipe Miocic beat a lot of guys that people know, and those are why they're considered the greatest heavyweights in the history of UFC. Fedor Emelianenko beat the best of the best over in Pride. That's why people think he's the best heavyweight period of all time. Jon didn't give himself a chance to do that, and he robbed Tom of the chance to do the same, because at the end of the day, when you're Tom Aspinall and you're like, at this point, he's going to fight Volkanov. Like it's nobody cares. Like to add that name to your resume, or Volkov, and this is a great fighter, and it'll be a huge win for Tom if he gets it, or beating up Sergey Pavlovich, the scariest guy in the world. We got a polar bear, and Tom knocks him out in 2 minutes. Nobody cares, because he wasn't. None of these guys have been able to build a resume because the division's been stalled for 3 years now. Like when there are pay-per-view events, you can't even throw heavyweight fights on there, because we know these two guys are supposed to fight. We don't have a number one title eliminator. It's just, hey, let's get Derek Lewis in here. Let's get Jailton Almeida. Oh, wait, he's boring. So we're going to put Tai Tuivasa and Junior Tafa on the bottom of every single prelim or every single main card. And people are going to eat it up because they're 265 pounds. And now everyone's looking around going, the heavyweights are sloppy. There is no technique. It's because the best ones haven't fought in a year.
Well, and it's interesting, too, because I'm looking, and the 𝐟𝐨𝐫𝐿 fight, March 4th, 2023. Stipe Miocic, November 16th, 2024. And that was the last fight. 2 fights Jon Jones had at the heavyweight division, which is pretty crazy to think about.
And, dude, he holds the belt knowing for sure that he's not going to fight Tom until the days – there's multiple records for, like, belt holders, obviously, like most title defenses, most fights as champion. But Jon had the heavyweight belt for the longest amount of physical time, and he fought once with the belt. Like that's ridiculous.
Especially in, this sport. What you guys got? Fighting every 6 months, basically. It feels like every once in a while. Belts are on the line a lot. But kind of moving past that, because I think it, and you can kind of sense a little venom in Tyson's voice, which is fine. A lot of people feel the same way about Jon Jones. Now, if you feel different, like I know, like Dana or Joe Rogan, he'll take a bullet before he says anything bad about Jon Jones, right? And that's just the way. And that's kind of what was interesting, because you said kind of pulled the wool over Dana's eyes, kind of screwed him over. Do you think Dana knew this was coming?
Yes.
And
I
do you think it affects what he thinks?
I think Dana knew the whole time. And no, I think that's why the glazing got so out of hand for the last couple months. Like when he had to build the perfect UFC fighter, if you've seen that video, and he picked Jon Jones for every category, or now he's getting upset if somebody mentions another fighter being better than Jon Jones. He's fighting with the guys who rank pound for pound fighters, because there's just no world that Islam is a better fighter than Jon Jones. And it's like, dude, what is it? Did you guys do cocaine together in Vegas or something? And Jon knows something he shouldn't know. I think Dana knew the whole time, and he was playing to the ego, and it just didn't work. And I think Jon threw out that insane amount of money number, being like, the UFC is never going to give that to me. And then when they did, he had to be like, yeah, I'll do it. Wait, no, I won't. Which is the same thing that happened against Francis Ngannou when he said he would take the fight. He signed the fight, and then he backed out of the fight. He does it here again. So that's tough. But no, I think Dana White's an interesting individual. The guys that he dislikes, that he hates George St. Pierre, because George vacated the belt at 170 after a very close fight with Johnny Hendricks that I think he lost, and I think a lot of people do. And then when he came back to 185, Dana wanted George to keep defending that belt when he beat Bisping, but he was clear the whole time, I'm vacating this. And from a fan perspective, give me the guy who's just like, hey, as soon as I get this thing, I told you guys I'm out. This is 6 months, 8 months. It's ridiculous.
Man, it's just another strange chapter, to put it lightly, in the murky, weird, saga that is Jon Jones.
Bro, he ducked his own retirement announcement. He had Dana White do it. Like, what GOAT does that? What greatest of all time does that?
What's next for the UFC after Jon Jones? Because he is a ticket, right? Jon Jones is fighting. Like I was at, like, when I watched him beat 𝐟𝐨𝐫𝐿 Tyson, I was at my friend's engagement party, and we're out, and some guy, I just found some random guy watched on the phone. I literally watched over his shoulder until he won, and I was like, nice to meet you. Had to watch Jon Jones. Appreciate it. And I was like, dude, Jon Jones is like a draw. Obviously, UFC builds stars. That's what they do. I feel like we're in a little bit of a lull. Me personally, I don't have as much interest in the UFC as I want to say maybe 3 years ago, even at this point. Where do they go without Jon Jones?
Well, I think that's tough because Jon Jones is the last active or remaining American champion, if you want to push that for the UFC. So this is the first time since 2004, I think, so there haven't been any American champions.
Wow.
So that's tough if you're the UFC to deal with. Alex Pereira loses to Ankalaev at 205, and Big Ink's a good fighter, but like he doesn't sell tickets like Alex does. At 185, Dricus du Plessis is an amazing fighter, and he's going to fight Khamzat Chimaev, and that's going to be awesome. But neither one of those guys, fill the arena and sell pay-per-views like Israel Adesanya did. And you go down the list, right? I mean, JDM at 170, he's going to fight Islam. That's a super fight, and how much marketing has there been behind JDM to really get that thing going? We have Topuria moving up to 155. This is going to be awesome. And then it's like, it's him versus Charles Oliveira, and I'm not hearing enough exciting things about that. Yes, the UFC builds stars, but part of the way you build stars is you let the 28-year-old Tom Aspinall fight the guy in Jon Jones. It's hard when these guys are picking and choosing their path a little bit more than they have been in the past. And for where they go now, you just need a cult of personality. We didn't know where they were going to go when Conor McGregor showed up. He came out of nowhere and took over the world, and maybe that happens again, but it's not. That guy doesn't seem like he's on the roster to me right now. Like Paddy Pimblett at 155, even if he somehow gets a hold of the belt, he's not doing the same thing. Sean O'Malley gets beat up badly twice by Merab, who's an awesome fighter, but how many people are going to look at the pay-per-view card and go, Divashili, I'll buy that one.
Right.
It's tough.
And that is interesting, right? Because you open this thing up globally, and for a long time the Brazilians were dominating, and you kind of go a little bit more Eastern European at this point in time, and you kind of just look through the roster, look at the names, and it's that style that's winning right now in the UFC. For a long time it was Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? That was the secret, because before it was just brawlers and kickers, and we're getting in there. It's the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy is going to dominate the sport, and that's what happened. I don't know how you get past where we're at now. I'm not saying it's bad.
Sambo, man.
But that's where we're at. Like you said, we don't have any Americans right now. They're at the top. Can that change? Potentially. I mean, I'm trying to follow, and I was looking around. It's who's somebody we can get behind? Joaquin Buckley just looked bad against Usman. That wasn't anything great. And it's O'Malley was supposed to be the guy. He lost twice, and again, didn't lose in a way, Tyson, we can look back and the next time we can get behind him, and he's just right there. It was no, he got dominated by Merab. So I think we're in a tough spot here for the UFC, and at least interest from fans' perspective without Jon Jones.
And it's going to get worse and worse because we're at the end of Dustin Poirier at 55. That's a household name for guys who are, or people who are involved in the sport. Gaethje is long in the tooth. Max Holloway seems like he's in it for fun fights right now. He's probably never touching gold again, which hurts to say. Volk is old at 45, and time comes for everybody. JDM looked awesome against Bilal Muhammad. There's no promotion there. If he beats Islam Makhachev, what's the fallout? Because at the end of the, people are going to go, Islam was too little. He fought a 55er coming up, and 85, Dricus du Plessis clears out that division, or Ankalaev clears out 205. It just isn't going to have the same impact. There is probably some 17-year-old kid out there, Brad, that's going to save us, but I don't know.
It's tough. It is tough. So we'll have to keep an eye on this. I mean, it sucks. Tyson's, I think rightfully bringing up the things and criticizing Jon Jones for just kind of how we're at here. But I mean, there's no doubt that not having him in the UFC is a big hit. There is no question about that.
I mean, we've barely had him for 5 years.
That's a good point too. But you mentioned the name Jon Jones, and it's the boogeyman. Jon Jones fighting, maybe. Okay, well, that's our UFC dive. We did a lot more than I expected, but I'm fascinated about getting Tyson's thoughts on this stuff, because I mean, it's a monumental moment here, not having this guy, and a lot to discuss with him. Potentially, we could do some more content going forward, but the problem is, right? It feels like the interest is waning a little bit. I think maybe Tyson are doing too many fights every weekend. I'm oh, why I don't want to sit on the Saturday and watch like some Fight Night 7,000 because we need to get some slaps on TV. I'm like, why don't you wait and load up a card?
The fight nights bang. The fight nights have been better than the pay-per-views. I think if you're you want to get into it, watch the free ones because you're just going to get disappointed at the $70-$80 ones.
I feel like it always works that way too. It's like, oh God, this is brutal. All right, let's get out of here. Like, subscribe, and share the show on the way out. We got a ton of content coming your way. Again, these summer months, we're trying to piece together some interesting things. Just take a look at different things in the world of sports. Baseball, we just did something on Devers. We got to wrap up basketball, kind of get into the offseason with trade stuff. And of course, football is right around the corner, which is the megalodon as we dive into get ready for the fall and get ready for the gridiron to start firing up again. So stay tuned so you don't miss a single thing that we do here. Smash that like button on the way out if you're watching on YouTube. We'll talk to you guys when we talk to you. Peace.